Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Dynamics 365 Tech Talk. Today's topic is Part 6 Performance Testing Day in the Life Testing for Finance and Operations Apps. My name is Tim, and I will be your moderator today. We are broadcasting the session through Teams live events, and the audio can be heard through your device speakers. This session is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation. When you join this event, your name, email address, and/or phone number may be viewable by other session participants in the attendee list. By joining, you're agreeing to this experience. The recording will be available on the TechTalk's Community Dynamics page within 5 business days. If you have questions for our presenter or need support, please use the Q&A panel located on the right side of your screen. Our presenters will be responding to your questions in chat during the presentation. Thank you for your patience during these announcements. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Edison Lai, Fast Track R&D Solutions Architect. Edison, over to you.
Thank you, Tim, for the introduction. Hello and welcome. Today's topic is Day in the Life testing and is part of the Performance Testing TED Talk series. I'm Edison, and with me today I have my colleague Stephen. We are a solution architect from Fast Track team. If you have any questions during this session, feel free to ask my colleagues straight away in the Q&A panel. We will answer your question during the session. If the time limit, and we will follow up your question in offline. Before we get started today's session, I would like to quickly remind everyone of Dynamics 365 Implementation Guide. This book has been written by Fast Track, and it provides perspective guidance for how to run a successful implementation of Dynamics 365. A special attention to Chapter 17, Performance Solution Beyond Infrastructure, and especially session performance testing approach in the chapter to get more insight. The purpose of this TED Talk, we will talk about the reason of the day in the lab testing and how to do the plan of the planning in the testing and how to complete it successfully. In today's session, we do not cover how to configure and set up environment. We also do not go into analyze and mitigate the performance issue, and we also do not cover any development program for day in the life scenario. And we have series of the performance testing. We have completed 5 past performance testing already in the Dynamics 365 CE and FNO. So you can go for our series for performance testing concept in part 1, testing tools usage in Dynamics 365 FNO in part 2, and the troubleshooting and mitigate the issue TED Talk in part 4. And in this TED Talk, we will focus on day in the life testing for FNO. So we will have the discussion to talk about what is the day in the life testing and how is the day in the life testing important in the project in our overview. And then we will let you know how to do the planning and how to do the day in the life testing, how to plan success planning for the day in the life testing in the Dynamics 365 FNO apps. And of course, I will show you the one of real life case study, and we will show you how to step by step make the testing success. And so we will have 5 phases in 4 steps totally in the case study to complete the day in the life testing. There will be the time addition Q&A at the end of the session, but do not hold your question to the end. My colleagues are ready to answer them during the session. Let's begin with the overview. So what is the day in the life testing? The wording showing you the exact running the system that way, you expect it to be run during a regular business day and is doing the testing with real daily operation in your system. So sometimes some people, they will have the misunderstanding between the performance validation and the day in the life testing. We have TED Talk in this series to talk about the performance testing, so you can go for our testing detail in this series. But I would like to highlight a few critical points between the performance validation and the day in the life testing. From the performance testing or from the performance validation, we often to do the testing is a single scenario, and you will do the testing by sequence. That means you do the testing one by one, you then mix node. For example, The first thing now, you will have to simulate multiple user to create the sales order from the UI. And then you may have another scenario testing to test the sales order posting after the creation in the second scenario. So you will check the performance one by one and test it by sequence. But back to the day in the life testing, we want to do the testing by sequence. We will do the multiple scenario and doing the mixed testing. Create sales order and sales order posting should be happen in the same time in the real life. And regarding to the duration, in the performance validation, it should be shorter. Sometimes maybe less than an hour or maybe just 13 or 15 minutes. But in the day, the lab testing is always longer than you expect. And we can say it should be testing in daily, day by day, 24 and 7. So what I mean, you need to let the system run the testing in the whole day, whole week, even whole month to get all the telemetry from the testing result perspective. It's because the goal of the performance testing may only observe specific scenario with the testing result, and you are doing the testing to validate the SLA or just that particular process performance objectives. But in the lab testing objective, you are observing end-to-end system usage perspective with the testing result. You are trying to understand how is the process working together, if there are any dependency issue, if they have the making any critical issue, and also if they have the conflict between the process if they are working together. Therefore, you need to verify the system function completely and check all of them are running as expected in the scenario that daily business operation. So you need to run the system that way you are really expect it to be run during the regular business day. So the system should run all the scenario what you expect they are running daily operation. That means you need to have set up the real total number of the user in the system for testing. And you need to prepare the real data, real life data for testing. Do not use the dummy or sample data because it may not incorrect pattern refer to the production. And also it may impact to the result. The data sizing in the system is more important as well in the testing. And we should provide much enough data during the day in the live testing. And also you need to prepare the XSM as data pattern in the system for your data preparation. And of course, in the real life, there are much integration connect with the production. So you still need to have to build up the integration interface with the system API, web surface for the third-party tools connect to the system, connect to the FNO, and then you need to ask for the transactional data, even that particular third-party system as well. You need to set up the batch job execution by SSM as production environment. You need to have the periodical schedule task. Scheduling for the batch job is running in the system. Schedule the batch job with the XSM time period in the system. Maybe early morning job, night job, even the midnight job. We need to understand what is the behavior of the job running in the particular time eventually in the production environment. So why is the day in the live testing is more important in the project? I think most of the customer, they would like to know how is their system running in the production environment, how is the performance of their device process, their design, their new features, as well as their new business operation in the live environment. How are they running in the production environment? Is there any performance issue or any potential issue found during the day in the live testing? So that's why we really suggest partner vendor or customer they should perform day in the live testing, especially in the large scale enterprise project. If you have the high volume transaction daily, if it is the mission critical system as well, it's more important to measure the application performance and scalability characteristics. For example, you may not find any performance issue in the performance validation stage because you are running the single testing only by sequence. So there are no issue finding in the performance validation, but you may find some issue in the during the day in the live testing. maybe the config, locking, and also maybe the data issue eventually. In addition, if you have different phase in the project, so in the first phase, you just roll out small group of BU or less amount of the user in the first phase. But how do you to ensure the application can be scaled out for the full users at the end? And second of the purpose for the day in the lab testing. At the end, the testing result, you can be trying to compare the person and future system with the testing result with their respe respective benchmark. And of course, in the day in the lab testing, we really want to figure out any mistake can be found out during the day in the lab testing to be prevent any critical issue before the system go live. And also, we are trying to find any risk or any unhealthy performance through the day in the lab testing. Sometimes actually there are less performance issue in the first few months after system go live. But when the data is going up day by day and there are different new features or change in the system, so what is the performance after maybe 3 months later? So you can find out the risk or any unhealthy performance in a day in the lab testing to find out the future issue in the testing to make sure the go live success not just in the first day only. So when is the best for the day in the lab testing? I always suggest to include the day in the lab testing should be part of the project. And I will go through the detail in next slide. So it means we should perform the testing before system go live, simulate the day in the lab testing with transactional data to find out any risk before system go live. And ideally, we should also consider to perform the testing when system roll out already, checking if system can be scaled out or scenario working normally with new features. So in this slide, I will explain how is the success plan to planning the day in the lab testing in the project. So the first one, you need to make sure day in the lab testing has been planned and also should be part of the overall project plan, because the day in the lab testing is not a shortcut test, and also you need to have the well planning before it start. And second, you need to allow sufficient time to prepare and run longer iterations, few weeks or a few months, or let the system running before and after go live with all key scenarios you define and agree on the day in the live testing. Day in the live testing is not a piece by piece work, and you cannot complete all the scenario testing in short period. So you need to have enough time for the preparation, scripting, and development. We will talk a little bit in later slide to show you how to use to do the prepare and define the development approach during the planning. And you may have many integration for the day in the live testing execution. So you still need to have sufficient time to find the finding and review the finding and eventually optimize the system after the analyze. So it is not 1 or 2 month work. And next, you should complete the UAT, SIT testing, performance validation before you move into the day in the live testing. It should be practiced. Day in the live testing should be the last one of the overall testing. But be carefully when you put all the untested signal in the day in the live testing. Actually, it's really hard to find out the related problem if they have not baseline before in the performance validation. So we are trying to minimize potential issue when running the day in the live testing. And last one, we should keep in data source, coding, platform version, application version in the latest aspect. Ensure code promotion should be same as the production environment or golden version in the golden environment as is before or after go live. If you have the code promotion in the production environment, I would suggest you to put the package deployment in the live testing environment to running with all scenarios to see if there are any critical issue before you do the code promotion in the live environment. So in the previous slide, we have talked about the planning for the data testing. So in this slide, I am going to show you 5 different phases in suggestions for you to do day in the live testing planning and work through the day in the live testing perspective and make the day in the live testing successfully eventually. In the planning phase, you should discuss and define the scenario in business daily operation. You should have the conversation with the key user, stakeholder, SME or partner sit together in the round table to come up what is the agreed scenario should be performed in the live testing. You need to follow all the key process to simulate them in the live testing. We define as much as scenario. That means we should see the testing results should be more reality. And then you need to discuss the goal. It's very important during the planning. Discuss the goal with the entry team to make sure what is the goal eventually for each scenario in the mixed node. For example, if we have the sales operation running together with the purchase order operation, so what is the expected from the SME or key user? Because example, we should complete the performance validation before move into the day in the live testing, right? In the performance validation tell us, we can say you need about 15 minutes to complete the sales operation posting. And then in the purchase order, maybe you just need 5 minutes to complete the purchase order posting. But what is the finally result they expect if both sales and PO operation are mixed together in the system? So finally is the 15 minutes or 30 minutes. So we need to have the clear need expectation and call it out together. And then we have the expectation for us. That means we can do the optimization based on that expectation. And and then we need to define the testing architecture. After you have the discussion with the team, you should understand what day in the live operation you need to simulate in the day in the live testing. And then you should start to think about what is the testing architecture and approach from the testing perspective, what tools you should use, and any help from the customer. Maybe you need the customer to provide the data pattern in the transactional data, or maybe the integration testing endpoint setup. So you should think about the final architecture in testing for the day in the live testing. After you complete the planning, you must get the sign off by the customer and every stakeholder. It's very important. And second, data and configuration phase. After you complete the plan and planning, and you got the sign off from the customer with agreed objective and define all the scenario. You define key process in the system, you need to do the thing in the live testing. That means you should know what data you need and what data you should prepare in the system. So in the data and configuration phase, you should prepare the master data and the transactional data, no matter the data is in the dynamic physics file or in your own testing database. And of course, we should have some POC for the environment. For example, you need to create and configure the testing user. You need to configure the parameter to connect with your development environment or middleware. So you can refer to our part 2 TED Talk in this series, Setup and Execution for Finance and Operation Apps, to make sure you understood how to prepare the environment to do the performance testing. And after you complete the planning phase and complete the data and configuration phase, that means you need to go into the development phase. In the development phase, it should be took much effort to complete all the signal in the live testing. After you draw or complete the testing architecture, and then you should have the idea, the thinking of which approach in the testing and which development tools is most benefit for the particular scenario, or also may what script in the approach. We are doing the thing in the live testing, so that means we need to automate all the scenario in the testing. We will not expect that trigger any scenario by menu, so we should expect the scenario is running in the system automatically with specified schedule time in the system. During the development, You should complete many unit tests to make sure the scenario is running successfully and also mix all scenarios in the system together without any issue. You need to make sure all process and scenario run without issue and well testing in the system, in the application, before you perform it in the live testing environment. And then, um, and then should be the execution phase. After you set up the environment, configure the environment well, and then you have the scripting, computer development for the scenario, especially automation should be complete, and you fix all the issue and make sure the testing complete successfully in your dev environment. Then we should go into the execution phase. In the execution phase, that means you need to perform all the scenario running in the live testing. So you need to make sure that the daily job has been set up correctly with the particular schedule time to the mixed workload with the system to simulate the daily operation. Those scenarios should be executed in the whole day, or whole week, or even whole month. It should be whatever you define the goal with the stakeholder or SME, but majority of the execution phase, we should make sure mixed workload is running successfully that we are expect, or we have been planned in the pending phase, or also refer to the mixed workload map. And then the last one should be the analyze phase and also the mitigation. After you execute the live testing in some iterations, and then you should have pulled out all testing results in the system to do the analyze for the mitigation if any performance issue. You should identify and analyze if there are any bottleneck and go live blocker, especially when we mix nodes running together in the system. And then you may adjust the issue and also solve the issue, and then you should plan and fix the issue as soon as possible in the system. And then you need to do the promotion again in the system. That means you need to be asked for the repeat the execution phase again. And also after the surface integration complete, and then you need to analyze the testing result again. So you can see the execution phase and analyze phase should be in the cycle 1. And the cycle should be longer. When you computer analyze, you should have some finding and fixing in the system, and then you need to perform another integration to come out another testing result for analyze. So finally, yes, that should be the day in the life testing. Okay, let's talk about a little bit regarding to the common tools for the day in the life testing. I just mentioned most of the common tools I have used in the day in the life testing, especially in the later on case study. Of course, if you have any other available tools, and then you just go for it. So the first one is the Perf SDK. It should be the necessary tools. You need to you need to embed Perf SDK to simulate the user activity with the dynamic 365 FNO. Here the reference link. You can go through the detail to check it out. And next one is the task recorder. It's also necessary tools in the live testing because it helps you to record the task process flow in the XML format and using the Perf SDK to help you generate the C# program. And then you can do the testing through the Visual Studio. And also here the reference URL, you can check the procedure and also the security required for the user who do the task recorder. And next is the Visual Studio Enterprise Edition. You need to make sure your Visual Studio Edition is the Enterprise, because when you do the multiple user simulation or multiple threading data load in the system, you need to use the load test module, but it's only available in the Enterprise Edition. So make sure you have the licensing for the Visual Studio Enterprise Edition. And next is the task scheduler. Actually, it's the one key for the automation in this case. It's the window task scheduler. We are using the task scheduler to do the trigger the schedule task automatically with the specific time. So it's the Windows server based, so it should be available in every server, and then you just create a basic schedule task in the task scheduler, and then we assign the specific time for that particular job. that it can be triggered on schedule time rather than the manual control, manual work to trigger the schedule or the scenario. And then also we will using the PowerShell or command line. We are using the scripting to maybe kickstart some testing job, or you need to have the scripting to check the application data is exists or not before you kickstart the scenario. And also you may need to update something. You need the scripting update some data to update your transitional data by the PowerShell scripting, for example. So in our case study, we are using the PowerShell to check what is the specific time right now to generate appropriate volume of the data to the system, because I think different volume of data between the morning, afternoon, and the nighttime. And also we were using the PowerShell to shift the data between the different environment and up the data through the PowerShell. And next is the SQL Server Developer Edition. Part 2 TED Talk in this series, we have the demonstration already to show you. We can use the CSV, Excel file, or also you can use the SQL Server database to help you to store the master data and help to keep track the transitional data so on. In our case study, we are using the SQL Server database to store our master data and also the transitional data, because we need to automate to create some sales transaction by specific warehouse item. Maybe we need to create some purchase order by particular item. So that's why we need to store some master data out of the dynamic business file. And so you need to have the master data. You need to have some place to store your data. Excel or CSV should be very convenient for you to edit. But if you have amount of the data need to be stored or keep maintenance, so I prefer using the SQL Server in this case. It's more easy way to maintain that required data. Okay, so please paste your question in the Q&A panel, and then our colleague will help you to answer the question. So we will go to the next slide, and in this slide, I will showing you how to make the day in the live testing success in the project. So I will show you the one of our case study in the real life and share the knowledge how to use to do the day in the live testing in the real life. So first of all, let's see the introduction and objective in this case study. So in this case study, it's a retail customer with a couple thousand retail store, and there are more than 20,000 end user in the retail store and also in the back office. And business operation is running in 24/7. So in our day in the live testing, we also set up the XSM as the business operation behavior in the testing environment. And dynamic business file is very mission critical for the store operation to the customer. So that's why we have to set up the day in the live testing in the testing environment to simulate the key scenario to find out any ways unhealthy performance before and after go live. And we need to perform the live testing with continually operation in the system. What I mentioned, the business operation is running in 24/7. So our day in the live testing is required running so on, and we haven't stopped that until we agree to stop. And we also simulate the same maintain window for each platform update, promotion. It can help to find out any how is the impacting between the maintenance window and the business operation. And the critical objective is trying to detect any performance regression when the code change, operation change, or business operation change. So the first step, we need to define the day in the live testing scenario, what we talked about in the previous slide. As I mentioned before in the planning phase, we need to understand each scenario in the full detail step regarding to the process flow and then the data flow. And what is the data volume and what is the dependency required is very important for us to plan the planning when you're defining the day in the live testing. So I have split into two stages. First stage is the discovery stage. Define what a key business operation process should be included in the testing. There are four options I suggest. Firstly, I have to go through requirement document, I've asked the team to share the requirement document, which include any performance requirement from the customer and the expectation in the document in the list. Second, chat with the SME or partner or key user together to discuss what is the core process in their real-life daily operation. Sit together to discuss what is the key of the scenario in the day in the live testing, because they should understood their business operation, their business process, what is their critical business process in the mission critical system in the daily operation. And during the discussion, I have talked about the goal eventually in the discussion to make sure everybody we are in the same page for the scenario and the goal. It's because we need to ensure the process definition is ready finally. And I have checked with the system telemetry and find out how system running in the week or month. Then I have the evidence to identify which core process must include in the scenario. Check the telemetry from the system usage. Maybe you can find the top usage form, top usage report, and also the workflow when you get the measure in the system. You can have the understanding what is the user or application behavior perspective in the daily operation. It's very useful for you to identify which scenario should be the key. The last one should be the design. You can check the design document and also anytime critical process in the design. For example, some job need to meet the deadline daily, and you can check what part in the design should be the top priority in the application development. Then it should be the key process and should be considered included in the thing in the live testing. So when complete the discovery stage, and then you have completed gathering all the information for the defining thing in the live testing scenario, so then I have started to prepare first document. It is a test plan document. You can go to our performance testing series part 1, planning for performance testing in the Dynamic 365. There are full detailed explanation for the testing strategy document. It's good to you to go through the planning TechTalk before you plan your test plan. In the test plan, I have write down all defined agreed scenario in the test plan. I have go through all the defined scenario in the UAT environment to capture the required details step by step. It's something like test script, but you need to identify which test script you refer to. Through the detailed step capturing, I have captured the data required for that particular form. When I have make the data setup requirement in the test plan, actually, please understand you are not the only owner in the test plan. Some part of the test plan should be owned by customer, partner, or vendor. In the integration team, data team, or SME key user, they need to provide the relative support for the day in the live testing. So it's very important collaboration with them. And then I have prepared mixed workload diagram. It's a timeline mapping. After the discussion with team to come out the scenario, you should have the diagram to help you to understand each scenario running time, specific schedule time in the system, what is the start time, what is the end time, and also I should see any peak hour there. It can help me to and the team to configure the environment. And eventually I need to base on the mixed workload diagram to set up my automate schedule task. And last one, I have prepared in the live testing architecture. It's helped me to present the overview of the testing flow, ensure team to make sure the data flows and the integration should be correct or not. And also I can explain what is the approach during the live testing. So I will show you my example in the next slide. As I mentioned in previous slide, in my test plan, I have defined the testing requirement, the background, and the defined scenario. We should always provide more detail in the testing requirement in the test plan to make sure the requirement is ready at the end. And I have put the goal, what I have discussed with the SME and key user, write down what is their expectation after the day in the live testing result. And the approach in the test plan, I have drafted the approach how to make the day in the live success. And what I did in the testing is very important to you to before you start the development or set up the environment. And then I have dropped the preparation in session. I have list out all the prerequisite and dependency in the list because a lot of the thing you can confirm yourself. Something need the customer to prepare it to provide if there are any dependency by another party, by another team. We should call it out in the document, what you need, what you expect, ensure team are aware of the preparation in the test plan. And then it's very important to let the team know what is the execution plan. I have tested each by each scenario in the UAT environment. Firstly, to understand how is the application operate with the scenario. For example, I have one scenario is the sales operation. So what is the excess flow in the sales operation? And what is the detailed step I need to simulate? So I have tested them in the UAT and captured the flows required parameter name and the value, and also the step-by-step screenshot. Finally, I have provided testing approach. Like I said, I will have a custom program to generate the sales transaction, import to the system by DMF, and then I have set up the posting job to complete the posting on schedule. And finally, of course, we need to put down what is the outcome in the test result. What format is the outcome? You need to prepare the issue list. You need to prepare the result import in the Word document or in the PowerPoint to present to the customer. What is your finding and what is your suggestion to resolve the issue in the close-down meeting? So the test plans format is very depends on your situation and your needs, but we should include those five big topics in this slide in the test plan. In the picture I'm showing is the example of the table of the content in my test plan, and also the expected testing result captured in the result report for reference. Okay, this slide is showing you about the mixed workload. What I mentioned is the second outcome when you define the thing in the live testing. Is the it is my defined mixed workload provided to the customer. I have provided the schedule timeline picture. I have divided the timeline in 24 hours. What I mentioned in this case study, customer require the system is running 24 and 7. So I need to speed the system running in 24. And then in the left-hand side, I have defined the process. There are sales import during at night, and there are journal counting happening in the midnight. And then you can see most of the signal is happening in the daytime during the office hour in the business operation. So I have listed out all the signal and process in the left-hand side. And then in the chart, there are different color in the chart bar. I have to define the timeline for each process, and the process maybe it is the batch job, recurring batch job, or is the user interactive. So for example, the last scenario in the left hand side, I have the SSRS reporting in the list. So the simulation is starting between 11 a.m. to 24, but you can see there are two peak from 13 to 16 and 20 to 23. So it's very critical to understand the number of the volume change. And then I need to adjust the concurrent user in the pre for the testing. So the mixed workload diagram to let the team understand how is the system running in the daily operation. Okay, in this slide, I'm showing you how is my testing architecture diagram. I have put what components with the scenario, what development language and program in the diagram, and how is the flow consuming together. You can see that in this case study, we are using the middle tier in the Azure. We have the Azure function, Azure DB in the middle tier, and integrate with the FNO. One of my scenario is the sales creation in the sales transaction. The sales order has been created by sales transaction from third-party tools POS. So sales transaction from the post, then I need to develop my own post program to generate the sales transaction based on the master data and transactional data in the SQL Server I set up before. When the sales transaction complete, and then make the service call consume middle tier Azure function endpoint and send the transaction package to the middle tier. And of course, middle tier testing environment is provided by the customer. So I do not need to handle the customization in the middle tier. That's why I said in the previous slide, you need to mention what is the prerequisite in the document, aware of the team who own it. And then after send the sales transition to the middle tier, and then the middle tier will have to reshape structure the transition to the data package. And the middle tier send the package to the FNO through the data package API, and then it will create the sales order by DMF. And finally, I have set up the sales posting job in every 10 minutes in the system. I have set up the appropriate condition to let the posting job to get the only open sales order and posting. After the sales post, the post data will be transferred to downstream system by batch job. So you will see there about the full picture in the testing diagram to show you and know what is the full set of the key scenario running in the daily operation as well as the for the day in the live testing. So in this customer requirement, I have developed my own program to simulate their third-party tools control program generated the data to the middle tier or to the dynamic specify FNO, and also we store the data in the master data. And I have set up amount of the batch job in the FNO side to make them running recurring with the schedule time. And also I have created amount of the testing user to simulate the user interactive, submission, and query in the system, SSRS reporting, workspace access. So testing architecture is very helpful to you to have the full picture of the testing approach. Then we will go to the preparation. In the preparation for testing, it is not difficult task, and we just need to make sure all of the thing has been set up completely what mentioned in the test plan. I have two areas need to do the setup. In the system side, I have set up the Visual Studio Enterprise because I need to do the multiple user testing. And then I have configured the Perf SDK about the sandbox service endpoint, certificate from PIN, and set up the SQL Server because I need to maintain my master data and store my transactional data. And also I have set up the controller agent setup in this case because as you see, it's a large scale project and there are high volume usage. And there are multiple use testing scenario will be running in the same time. So controller and agent can help to share the workload balance. It can help to balance the CPU usage and memory because the utilization is very high when you perform the different testing in the same time. I would like to suggest set up controller and agent for large scale enterprise customer. And from the application perspective, I have created among the testing user. I was creating more than 5,000 testing users in the testing environment with the appropriate security role. Configure the system parameter and scenario parameter to make sure the environment only for the testing purpose. Which data will not route to the production environment is very important. I have this is all in the test plan and agree with the customer. So I just follow the test plan to set it up. And then set up the AAD registration because I have the downstream application connect to the system. And beside for the batch setup, I have to set up the batch job priority based scheduling active period based on the mixed workload diagram what I mentioned before to the batch job setup. And also the transactional data and downstream application. Finally, I have get the help from the customer to provide me the downstream application endpoint for the live testing. And these are the tips for the creation of the test user. Our Perf SDK actually has provided the program to you to create a testing user, but I would like to suggest you to create your own testing user by DMF. In this case, I have created about more than 5,000 users in system. Therefore, entity has been used. User information, create a new user in the user table. You can specify your own user ID and email address format, and it's easy for you to re-add any missing user. And user role association entity. Actually, by default, the Perf SDK will create a testing user with administrator role, but it's not good for the testing. We should test the scenario with specific role. So, so this entity can help to define the security role. You can specify the user role, maybe different user for the different role. It's more easy control in the spreadsheet rather than the UI. An employee entity and user to person relationship entity is used for the employee mapping for the testing. Um, Actually, it's very hard to maintain the employee with the testing user in the UI if you have the 1,000 testing user in this case. So DMF entity is to create the testing user can be benefit of the user ID controllable. It's very easy to format the user ID from the actually, from the Perf SDK testing user creation, the user ID format is only the format is the random number with the digit and characters. But you can define your own format by Excel if based on the DMF entity. It's easy to control the role security, what I mentioned. String any testing user role you need, and delta testing user easily as well. And the last, I think, is very useful to reconfigure the testing user when the DB refresh from the production. Because in every DB refresh, you need to reconfigure all the testing user in the system and the prioritize as well. And this is the tips for the data configuration. Again, in this case study, I have stored all of them by different data entity in the table. For example, I have the set of the sales table for the sales transaction, item, discount, payment, and other set of the data entity for the PO and PO receiving. So there are about two types of the data in my case. First one is the master data. For example, store information, item information, warehouse, BI. And then the second is the transactional data. It should be to generate each integration, and it will be stored in the SQL Server database first, and then we'll consume the endpoint of the middle tier or FO, and send out the transaction to the system. Store master data or transactional data in the SQL Server actually is easily to maintain it, and also it easily to replicate the data source to another environment if you are requiring to duplicate for another testing in different environment. And of course, it is the option to you where you store the data. CSV and SF is also the option. After our test plan planning complete, environment and data setup complete, then we will go to the development stage. Given table is one of my scenario flow in the test plan. You should understand deeply the business process flow sometime. The scenario combined with different process. You can see there are many steps in each scenario. And then you should have your own scenario flow in the test plan rather than capture the flow just from the required document or SDD. The process flow can help me to identify which tools or technical needs in the development. For example, in the generation role, it should be the program to produce the data. It means I need to develop a program. I need the data to generate the transactional data in the program and send to the system. In the submission role, it means I need to simulate the user activity for their submission. You can see in the detail step, we can see the user need to access to the system and open the form, input some data, and then submit. So it should be the user activity submission. And in the system job role, it is the system job. So I have set up related batch job with the parameter required in the list and schedule time for from the test plan. So in this table, I have listed out what I need and what should I use during the development. There are three types. What is the integration, and then user activity, and then the batch is referred to the process flow as well. Then I will outline and confirm the tools and techniques in the each process. For example, in the panda order in this example, interface integration, originally originally they're about a third-party system to push the data to system and generate the panda order. But they are doing the live testing with to simulate it. So I decided to develop the C# control program to generate the required data every day, every time. Set up the load test with the Visual Studio for sending the data to the system by multi-threading purpose, and set up the task scheduler to automate the integration with the specific schedule time. At the end, master data and transactional data has been stored in the SQL Server for maintenance. For the Panda owner submission, I need to simulate the end user submission. So I capture the submission flow in the UAT environment first, and then convey it to the C# script by the perp SDK and task scheduler to help on trigger the process automatically on schedule. So it's easy to decide which tools and technical needs after you have testing architecture and max workload and detailed process flow in the test plan. Okay, in next tools now, I will show you how my development and execute flow for the purchase order and good receipt in the example. Actually, it's very straightforward. For my process flow, so before I need to create and generate plan order for store user to submit, and then convert it to the purchase order for receiving, then post the PO. In this example, I'm showing you what is my development flow based on the process flow. So firstly, I have discussed with the customer and understand the source data actually is come from the first party. The data source is the JSON format, and the data structure is dynamic with different item and item group. So I have created a control program and generate the panda order in the JSON format and refer to the master data in the SQL Server. All generate data has been stored in the SQL Server for sending out. And then I create a web test in the Visual Studio. I have used the web test to help connect between the dynamic file FNO and data source from my SQL Server transactional data. You need to specify the credential and get the token for offend. Then I have created a load test for the web test. It can do the multi-threading for the sending data to the FNO, and it can help to simulate the third-party system to send the data to the dynamic business file. And also it has been triggered by task scheduler. It should be the key. In the real life, customer need to generate the payment order in the midnight. Then there are available the payment order in the early morning for the retail user to do the submission. So I have created the task scheduler task and set up the specific time with which can be triggered on time in the midnight automatically. You can see there are two actions in the task scheduler. One is to create the panda order through the control program. When it complete, then we'll start next step. And then I will have the script to trigger the standing generate panda order to the FNO. And of course, I have the batch job already in the system. Like 4 a.m., I have sent the panda order to the system, and 5 a.m. the batch job in the system will be scheduled to start to generate the system panda order. So you can see it's very straightforward, and they are all dependency between the each flow. It means if one of the process fail, then the whole scenario will be failed as well. That's why we need to make sure the unit test need to be fully complete successfully, reducing the failure when execute it in the day-in-the-life testing. When I have printer order ready in system, I have record the submission flow by task recorder to record the flow of the retail user submission. You can refer to Performance TechTalk Series Part 2 to take a look how to use the task recorder to capture the flow. I would suggest you to capture the flow with appropriate security role user rather than the admin. Sometimes there are data security in the application. We need to make sure the testing user has enough and correct security role during the testing. And when complete the record the submission flow in Dynamic Physics file, then I have created C# testing script by Perf SDK in my dev box. So, similarly to sending out the pending order, I have created another load test to simulate the multiple user submission. In my case, I have simulated more than 5,000 retail user submission in an hour. So you need to decide how is your load pattern in the load test. You can also refer to the Part 2 TED Talk. There are explanations of how to configure the load pattern in the load test project. And then I have used the task scheduler to automate the action as well. In this case, the activity will be triggered in the morning time, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Task schedule will have to start the submission every day, and then about 1,000 testing users log into the system and submit their order. Actually, I do not need to trigger it myself and control by the task scheduler. And then I have the batch job set up already in the system. Once the panda order submit by the testing user, the submit panda order will be converted to the purchase order by the scheduled batch job. It means our script and program directly to handle the conversion. It will handle by the batch job and active period. So when all the development has been complete, and then all scenarios should be well tested in the dev environment. We need to make sure the unit tests have been fully completed successfully. And after that, we have the shuffle run of the dry run to finalize the day in the live scenario before the real execution in the testing environment. You need to perform dry run to confirm there are no outstanding issue and the scripting program is ready for the day in the live testing. You can see after dry run, then we will go into the circle of the execution flow. We have to perform field integration execution in the testing environment. Make sure there are no unexpected issue happen. It means the testing results should be ready. And we can capture those testing results and the telemetry and then consolidate all information for analyze. In the analyze, you may need the development team and the BA to help to understand the coding flow if there are any issue found. Actually, it's not even in the performance issue. Sometimes we find the issue regarding to the data issue. So that's why we need to understand the flow, then you can change the issue easily. It should be great if we find the bottleneck and report it back to the team, provide the resolution to team, then we can have the fix in the system for the testing flow. After we identify the issue and fix them, and then we deploy in the live testing environment again, then we can capture the testing temperature, then see any further performance issue find in the system again. So that should be by doing the lab testing is the non-stop and continuous testing. Actually, right now, this customer's the lab testing is still running in parallel with the live system. And the last is the sample of the result for the analyze. Please research part 4 TED Talk in this series, analyze and mitigate the performance issue for FNO. There are a great detail and guidance to explain how to start to analyze performance testing result and provide the recommendations how to mitigate the common performance issues. You should make your own testing format report as defined and agree with the customer in the pending phase. With the result in report to show how is the system running and the data to show how is the performance in the system. As my case, I have created Excel and Power BI for the testing result. I have a Excel to keep track the testing result. For example, the performance of the sales operation, the data volume, the configuration, and the activity by day. When the computer analyze, then I will do the mitigation in the next few iterations. So I will mark if there are configuration change or any specific in the remark to make sure the performance change based on the existing configuration or change or new configuration. And I have captured the performance data for the data visualization in the Power BI. Turn all that raw data into easily understood. So yeah, please paste your question in the panel, and we will follow up in the offline. Thank you, and thank you for your attention. I will turn it back over to Tim.
Thank you, Edison. I've posted a link to a short survey in the Q&A panel. We'd like to hear your feedback on today's session and hear what you would like to see in future sessions. Thank you for your participation. As a reminder, the recording of today's session will be available on the TechTalks Community Dynamics page within 5 business days. I'd like to extend a big thank you once again to our presenter, Edison Lai, and to our audience for joining us today. We hope you have a great rest of the day ahead.